The word telegraph comes from the Greek word tele and graphen, meaning at a distance and to write, respectively. It is defined specifically as the long-distance transmission of textual or symbolic messages without the physical exchange of an object bearing the message. Now, this could be anything from the old semaphore optical telegraph to more ancient forms of telegraphy such as smoke signals, beacons, or flags. However, for the sake of time, simplicity, and disambiguation, the telegraph we will be referring to in this video is the electrical telegraph, as it is the most commonly implied machine when referring to the telegraph. Furthermore, the dictionary definition for a telegraph is a system for transmitting messages from a distance along a wire, especially one creating signals by making and breaking an electrical connection. So yeah, the electrical telegraph machine is an electronic telecommunication device which functions off the basic principle of sending electric pulses across a wire encoded in a format known as Morse code. Okay, so let's take a closer look at exactly how a telegraph machine works. There are many different configurations your telegraph machine could be laid out, but the configuration we will be looking at today looks a little something like this, as it is simple and contains the general components required to send a telegram. On the left, we can see the Morse key, which is the sole input source for Morse code. And when the Morse key is pressed by the operator, a circuit is completed between the battery and the electromagnet on the right. The activated electromagnet will attract the armature from its default position held down by a spring, and the contact will strike a parchment on a copper rod, creating an audible feedback and record the input. The signal will be sent out on wire to the telegraph machine at your destination, where the electromagnet there will activate, making a sound and recording the signal for your recipient. As a civilian, the process to send a telegram was quite similar to sending letter mail. You would go to your local post office with a telegram message, and the telegraph operator would send it across a network of wires which links to the destination telegraph operator who would decode the message for your recipient. In fact, this telegraph network even traversed the Atlantic Ocean, with the transatlantic telegraph cable delivering messages between the US and Europe. Now, Morse code is a one-dimensional language which is comprised of dots and dashes. A short press of the Morse key represents a dot in Morse code, and a long hold represents a dash. The combination of these dots and dashes makes up letters, and together create words which form entire messages. However, it should be noted that due to the difficulty of encoding and decoding these messages, the average length of a telegram in the United States was only 11.93 words.
The first electric telegraph was developed by Samuel Morse, Leonard Gale, and Alfred Vail. In England at the time, two men, Sir William Cooke and Sir Charles Wheatstone, had created a telegraph system with 5 magnetic needles that would point at a board of letters and numbers using an electric current. In America, Samuel Morse had been an art professor at NYU at the time and had become intrigued with the electric telegraph. He had studied in Europe for a period of time after finishing his degree in arts at Yale when he heard a conversation about electromagnetism. Morse had developed a version of the telegraph himself and gave a public demonstration about what he'd created. With little to no education about electricity, Morse's invention was technically incorrect and had many malfunctions. Gale and Vail, who had been inspired by Morse's telegraph, improved upon his diagram. They produced a single-circuit telegraph with the help of Morse, creating the first functional telegraph in the 1830s and 40s.
The telegraph revolutionized long-distance communication. Before such invention existed, the most common form of long-distance communication was through the semaphore or by horseback. If we look even further back, we can see methods such as drum beats or smoke signals. These primitive forms of long-distance communication were unreliable and had a limited distance. When the telegraph entered the game, the world of long-distance communication changed drastically. The electric telegraph was a faster and easier way of sending and receiving detailed information at a long distance. Take communicating through messengers on horseback as an example. A horse's average galloping speed is 48 kilometers per hour. The speed of electricity is 10,792,528,488,000 kilometers per hour. This makes a telegraph 224,844,343,500 times faster than horseback. Although the telegraph had fallen out of widespread use by the start of the 21st century, replaced by the telephone, fax machine, and internet, it laid the groundwork for the communication revolution that led to those later in.
The impact of the telegraph over society has led to many improvements in history. The telegraph changed the entire way which messages would travel distances. It could be delivered through Morse code through the telegraph instead of relying on people to deliver it. The telegraph made sharing information with other countries like Europe effortless. With notable amount of information beginning to be shared around the globe, newspaper industry skyrocketed, giving many people the chance to learn about current events all around the world. The telegraph impacted commercial markets who were originally dependent on local supply and demand by shortening the distance between cities and nations. It also revolutionized the war by allowing generals to communicate with their legions and other forms of military. With the introduction of the telegraph, we've been able to continue on with this invention to create the telephone in 1876, the computer in 1936, and the internet in 1983.